happy to hear from the honourable member from Morinville-St. Albert, or for Morinville-St. Albert, and the Associate Minister for Natural Gas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am honoured, I'm humbled here to be here in front of you. I would like to thank the wonderful people from Morinville-St. Albert that saw to it to elect me to represent them in this legislature. I'd also like to give a shout out to some of the people that, of course, have been behind me, starting with, of course, my parents who molded me into the person that I am. If you don't like that, you can speak to them. I'd also like to mention my wife, Randa, who inspires me every day to want to be a better person. And one of the things that she taught me was to always recognize those people that are the hardest working people. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a second just to recognize some of the hardest working people in this legislature, and that's the Pages. And I am so incredibly impressed by them because on day one, they knew 87 names and 87 ridings. And I'm quite impressed by that. And so my goal is before the end of this session, I'm going to try and learn all of their names. And I'm also going to challenge myself to try to learn at least one thing about them. I got a couple now I'm just going to quickly share with you. And this is for anybody, by the way, who wants to take up skiing. I would suggest you go see Amber because she was a competitive alpine skier. You might want to chat with Lily, whose favorite color is gray. Or you could talk to Maria, who absolutely loves Indian dancing. Now, I would suggest that if our Prime Minister could find Alberta on a map, I would ask him to come here and perhaps Maria could teach him a move or two. And I would also like to, the last one I'll sort of mention is Summer, who is not only a valedictorian this year, but she's also graduating, grade 10, grade 11. She got 100% in math 2 years in a row, and she's now going for 100% in grade 12 as well, and that'll make it 3 for 3. So when you see Summer out in the lounge, please give her a high five and tell her we want 3 for 3 on that 100% in math. So I'd also like to give a shout out to my daughter, who is a successful business owner and who has taught me and constantly reminds me about the benefits of being a compassionate conservative. My son Jad, who's 15, and by the way, he's also the best Minecraft player in the world. And by the way, you don't get good at Minecraft and be the best in the world without playing a lot of Minecraft. And so I'd like to give a shout out to him because he taught me, if nothing else, persistence overcomes resistance. And then lastly, my youngest son, Shaddy, who taught me to never take my eye off him because he's a bit of a troublemaker and reminds me quite a bit of myself. And he's also a great hockey player as well and plays at quite a competitive level. Those are certainly the people that have inspired me and motivate me to come in here and to be the best that I can be. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask all the honourable members through you to, of course, put your smartphones down, close your standing orders, get comfortable in your seats, because we're going to take a ride, so you might want to buckle up as well for this one. Now, we are going to start in the most southern portion of my riding, my hometown, St. Albert. Now, St. Albert is the city of botanical arts. So if your preference is wave petunias or purple flame grass, it doesn't matter because we've got a little bit of something for everyone in St. Albert. And in fact, from June 8th to August 24th, you can actually hop on the botanical bus. And it starts in the Enjoy Center, and then it takes you to our world-famous farmers market, and from there it'll take you to our botanical center, which of course is world-class and definitely worth the trip. But that's not all St. Albert is known for. Mr. Speaker, St. Albert has an affliction. I suffer from that same affliction. It's known as hockey. And I can tell you that people in St. Albert love hockey. They're either playing hockey, they're practicing hockey, and when they're not doing that, they're thinking about when they can next play hockey. And I'm going to give everyone a little tip here for anyone who does any fantasy hockey leagues, and I know there's lots of you. But you might want to write down the name of Matt Savoy. He's native to St. Albert. He lives a block from me. I never see him unless it's on the ice, because he's another one of these 14-year-olds that lives and breathes hockey. He was recently picked #1. He was drafted #1 overall to play in the WHL. And they are using his name in the same sentence as other child phenoms, such as Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. So, like I said, remember Matt Savoy for your hockey drafts. Now, on this journey, we're going to drive northward, and we're going to go through Sturgeon County. Now, as you're driving through Sturgeon County, you're going to notice the canola fields on your left, and you're going to notice the Sturgeon River on your right. Well, Mr. Speaker, you would be forgiven for thinking that you were in God's country, because there is no doubt this is one of the most beautiful ridings, if not the most beautiful riding in the province, if not the country. You drive a little further north, Mr. Speaker, and of course you have got the industrial heartland, which is responsible for half the GDP in this province. And if you haven't toured the industrial heartland, I would encourage you to do so, because it's definitely worth the trip. But on this trip, we're keep heading north, and we're going to hit Morinville. Now, Morinville was founded in 1907. The St. John Baptist Church was named a historical center or a historical site in 1975. And Morinville just finished construction of a world-class recreational center. It's a $30 million leisure center. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that people from Morinville, if they've proven anything, it's that they can punch above their weight class. So I encourage you, while you're on this journey, don't be afraid to check out the recreational center in Morinville. Now, on this trip, we're going to keep going north, and we're going to go to Legal. Legal is a wonderful French community. For myself, I will always think of it as the smallest town with the biggest church. And if you want to know what I mean, just go check it out, because it does have the largest church in town. But that's actually not what they're known for. They are known as the national capital for French murals. And most people don't know this, Mr. Speaker, but there's actually 28 murals in the town of Legal. And on Sunday afternoon, when you're looking for something to do, I encourage you to drive to Legal, check out those 28 murals. It's quite impressive. Now, on this drive, of course, we're going to now head into Bonaccord, which is the first community in Canada and the 11th in the world to be designated as an international dark sky community. So if you're interested in astronomy and you want to take your telescope out one Sunday evening, Bonaccord is a great place to go, just because if they don't have a ton of visual pollution or light pollution in the sky. Now, after you leave Bonaccord, you're going to head into Gibbons. Now, Gibbons was originally two separate towns, Ashleyville and Battenberg, but they merged together, and they named the town after the founding land settler of William R. Gibbons. But for me, Gibbons will always be known for something else. It will be known for their world-famous meat draw. Now, prior to this campaign, Mr. Speaker, I didn't know what a meat draw was. And if you're looking at me wondering what it is, well, it's a great opportunity to raise money for the local town. And I would encourage you to go to the Gibbons Hotel. You can order a cold beverage. I recommend the nachos. They're excellent. And then you can participate in the meat draw, and it's actually a lot of fun. And it's a great way to bring the whole town together. Now, we're going to be going a little further north now. We're going to be hitting Redwater. Redwater gets their town from the close-by river, which actually turns red from the spring runoff, and that's how the town got its name. Redwater has a 45-meter-tall discovery wall, derrick, and it's one of their historic landmarks. But there's something else kind of cool about Redwater, Mr. Speaker. There's a gentleman there by the name of Dave. He works on town's council. He's a retired RCMP officer. He purchased the old RCMP detachment, and he renovated it into his home. And it's actually quite impressive. He renovated the entire detachment except for the jail cell. He left the jail cell intact. So it's got the bars, it's got the stainless steel sink, and it's actually quite neat. If you go there, if you knock on his door, tell him Dale sent you. He'll be more than happy to give you a tour. It's quite a neat little project that he has going there. Now, Mr. Speaker, I am very fortunate to represent this incredible riding, but I'd like to back up just a little further now and tell you how I got into politics. My interest in politics started in grade 5. That was when my grade 5 class, under the guise of Mr. Penner, taught us about government. And we actually had an election, and I ran to be Prime Minister of the class. And my slogan for that campaign was, "Nally's his name, improvement's his game." Now, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, my political prowess has improved somewhat since then. So you won't be seeing that slogan on any of my buttons anytime soon. But it certainly got me interested in politics at an early age. I never had the opportunity to get involved, though, because I was a single parent at a young age. I went to university full-time, I worked part-time, and I raised this little girl on my own. And you can imagine how difficult that was. And I didn't have any family supports close by. So I was on my own. And it was at this time when I developed my own ideology, what I call compassionate conservatism. Because, Mr. Speaker, I realized that Mr. Speaker, that the best way you can help someone out who needs a hand is by having a strong economy. You know, I learned at this opportunity that an industrious, hardworking person can apply themselves, they can get ahead, and they can get a mortgage-paying job. And that was what I learned at this crucial juncture in my life, Mr. Speaker. I also, shortly after that, I found myself as a general manager of a Home Depot. This was during one of the largest labor shortages our province has ever seen. And at that time, if you went into any big box retailer, whether it was Home Depot or Walmart, they were all grossly understaffed. They just couldn't hire people. Well, Mr. Speaker, I had the only big box retail store that was fully staffed. And the reason it was fully staffed is because I reached out to the Mennonite Center. And the Mennonite Center's job is to find jobs for newcomers. And they did a great job of helping us get staffed up. In addition to that, I started looking for other partnerships. And I formed a partnership with a company called Employabilities. And their job is to find employment for people with disabilities. And from there, they introduced me to a few other organizations that found work for people with disabilities. The end result, Mr. Speaker, was that I had the only fully staffed Home Depot in the hottest economy in North America. And the best part was that our profit was so high because we had such great staffing levels. The president of Home Depot actually sent my wife and I to the Beijing Olympics as a thank you. And it was at that time when I learned about what I call the business reason for hiring people with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, everybody has value. And the challenge is just to find out that value that they can bring to the workforce and harness that for the company and also for themselves as well. And it was shortly at that time when I bumped into a gentleman who worked for the Chamber of Commerce. And he found out about the work that I was doing with companies on promoting the hiring of people with disabilities, and he asked me to be the co-chair for Diversity Edmonton. And it was a consortium of businesses that worked with other business to promote the hiring of people with disabilities. And it was at that time when I got to do more work on what I call the business case for hiring people with disabilities. But it was also an opportunity for me to learn about the importance of taking care of the most vulnerable in our society. And so, Mr. Speaker, those are some of the ideals that I hold dear to my heart. And 4 years ago, when we saw the electoral map change, I had some concerns. Those concerns were realized when we got on track to be $100 billion in debt, when we had 200,000 unemployed Albertans. Mr. Speaker, we were in a job crisis. We had the third highest unemployment in the country.
Honourable member, I hesitate to interrupt.